Deleone Senchiella. Bless the essence for the essence blesses. Psychic Trauma here. Hashtag living the stream. What's up, y'all? Here we are. There's supposed to be a State of the Union address. Let's see if we can find that State of the Union address, right? Let's see about that. So we'll go here. We'll go here. Alrighty. State of the Union address. Associated Press, State of the Union address, right? Washington Post, ABC News. State of the Union address. A few minutes from the State of the Union address, where President Joseph Robinette Biden will so there's some protests outside the White House. Who the fuck cares? Fuck. Yeah. State of the Union address, right? What are we gonna talk about with that shit? Let's load this marijuana. We're waiting on the State of the Union address. Oh, shit. I need some water. Be right back. Oh, right here. Do not underestimate the power of the dark side. Hmm. Hmm. Oh. Ah. Oh, my shoulder. It's all fucked up. Oh my god. Ah. Hmm. Anybody want to chat? Um. Hmm. All this fucking bullshit. State of the Union address is starting. Anybody want to talk? Hmm. Yep, State of the Union. Motherfuckers still walking in and take their seats. Hmm. So New York sends the National Guard to the subways to help with violent crimes. Anybody want to chat? Hmm. Anybody want to talk? Anybody join up and chat? Oh my fucking god, dude. Alright, let's check it out. We're still walking retards. A march of the tards. Oh. Have you all seen the movie Spaceman with Adam Sandler? Or how about Code 8 Part 2? I saw Code 8 Part 2. I thought that was good. I gotta watch Spaceman with Adam Sandler. Slice Stallone movie. Stallone. That's the fifth Stallone movie. Yeah. Get what you. It's the fifth Stallone movies. Alright, motherfucker still ain't sitting down, dude. Still waiting for that fucking State of the Union address. Alrighty. Hello, viewers. If any of y'all want to chat, please do. I'm waiting for State of the Union. State of the Union address. Wow, my fucking shoulder hurts. Alrighty, let's fucking. No, still nothing. Still fucking worthless old fucking motherfuckers piling in. Hmm. Still waiting for that State of the Union address. Oh, Supreme Court's walking in. Hey, yo. I'm listening, I'm watching. Oh, dang, 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 dang. The Supreme Court. So, well, here we go. Uh, the United States Supreme Court is going to rule on the constitutional fuckery on whether or not homeless people have a right to camp on public property. As long as you're saying they're traveling, right? You have the right to travel. god, dude. Ah. Oh, oh. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh fuck. So this is Biden's State of the Union address to convince the country that he needs another 4 years. Or retirement. Peace out. Oh my goodness. Holy fuck. Oh. Oh, oh, dude, right there. Oh, fuck, dude. This spot right here, dude. Oh, man. Wow. Okay, so I think I may have got it. Think about it. You just got to get that spot and work that knot out, dude. Oh, oh, fuck. Wow. Oh, wow. Oh, oh my goodness. Oh. Whew. Oh, I'm waiting for the president to show up to speak. Oh my god, dude, wow. Just working this knot. Oh, oh, this hand is so tired. Oh my goodness. Oh, 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 oh my god. Oh. All right, here we go. All right. Joe Biden. Alright, alrighty. Fuck.
Lloyd Austin, and then Attorney General Merrick Garland. Some of you might remember that Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin recently had surgery for cancer, but did not inform the White House of that, something that caused tremendous consternation with members of Congress. But we're not seeing any residual frustration or anger as he walked down the aisle tonight. Inform the White House of that, something which happen to have a very large and broad base, but a very diverse base that it sometimes finds differences with each other. This is a chance for them to come together. And that's what they're trying to do tonight. We see Pete Buttigieg, the Transportation Secretary, and Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm coming down as well. Buttigieg, of course, ran for president against Biden in 2020 and managed to win the Iowa caucuses. And then behind Granholm is someone very important. That is Alejandro Mayorkas, the Secretary of DHS. He was recently the subject of an impeachment effort by the House. The House took 2 efforts in order to impeach him, and that means Mayorkas' trial could go before the Senate. Behind Mayorkas is the White House Chief of Staff, Jeff Zients. Zients has been building up expectations for tonight, saying that Biden is going to come out with a sense of passion. Near Zients is the Veterans Affairs Secretary, Dennis McDonough, who had been the Chief of Staff during Barack Obama's presidency. Getting hugs in the middle of the screen is OMB Director Shalanda Young. Shalanda Young is one of those math gurus inside the White House who happened to negotiate this past summer how to raise the debt ceiling, all while taking care of her daughter in daycare. She is going to be on the hot seat in the next week as the White House launches its budget proposal and continues to negotiate with Congress over issues like funding. We're still waiting for several cabinet members to find their seats. This is a slow and gradual process that, as is often the case when the president speaks, is not necessarily running on schedule, because this is a moment, almost like a reunion of glad hands, a chance to just say hi and wish each other well. Out at the far left on the screen, you can see West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin. Manchin has been one of the major players during Biden's tenure. He's not running for re-election because West Virginia has increasingly turned Republican. But it was Manchin who helped put together deals like the Inflation Reduction Act, which allowed for investment in renewable energy and might be one of the major subjects that Biden will bring up tonight. He's blocked on screen ever so slightly, but there is Utah Senator Mitt Romney, who was just talking to Manchin. Romney is also not seeking re-election. And the fact that so many people are leaving Congress who are thought of as being able to work together in a bipartisan sense tells you a lot about the frustration that many lawmakers feel and how challenging it could be for anyone to bring a country this politically polarized together and find the incentives to do so. Members are still speaking and waiting to get to their seats as we await President Biden's arrival. Last year when Biden spoke, the speech went about an hour and 13 minutes. Many State of the Union addresses tend to run an hour, give or take 10 or 15 minutes. President Bill Clinton has the longest delivered State of the Union speech on record, although Jimmy Carter in 1981 delivered a State of the Union that was more than 30,000 words, but since he'd recently lost the election, he didn't bother to speak. He just submitted it in paper form to Congress.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
And here comes President Biden. You can see him getting a lot of applause from Democrats in the chamber. Speaker Johnson is also standing up there and applauding for the president as he very slowly makes his way down the aisle as he greets members. This is a really comfortable space for President Biden. He came to the Senate from Delaware in 1972. He spent most of his adult life in the U.S. Capitol as a senator for Delaware. He thinks of himself often in those terms still to this day when he thinks about what his policies mean for constituents. He even reads local Delaware newspapers and sends letters and congratulatory notes to people he reads about. And so again, this is a man at home in the U.S. Capitol who's made plenty of speeches here. In fact, back in 1983, when he was a senator, he delivered the Democratic response to Ronald Reagan's State of the Union. It was a very unique response in that Biden did so without his suit jacket on and standing up in his office. He had his aides working behind him as he spoke, and he literally did a walk and talk like what you would see in the TV show The West Wing decades later. And his big point was very similar to what he might talk about tonight, that he needed an economy with opportunity and fairness for workers. And in doing that, he channeled the Great Depression era president Franklin D. Roosevelt, saying, quote, "It can be done." Tonight is a chance for him to prove that that's still possible. You see Biden is still greeting more lawmakers. Behind him is Chuck Schumer, the New York senator and the Democratic leader in the Senate. Biden is going in for hugs and kisses. Again, he is with Democrats who know that he is their choice in 2024. Biden has faced little opposition in the Democratic primaries, despite concerns about his 81 years from voters. Right in front of Biden right now is Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, who's holding up her phone and appears to be saying something to him while wearing a Make America Great Again hat and what appears to be a t-shirt supportive of former Republican President Donald Trump.
Ooh.
And we can see that Biden is posing for more selfies. He's become something of a selfie aficionado when he's out on the road. That's become one of his major ways of interacting with supporters at speeches and rallies once COVID restrictions lifted. Sometimes after remarks, he can take 20, 30, even 40 minutes with people just getting those selfies. And there's Biden with Manchin, the West Virginia senator, and Mitt Romney, the 2012 Republican nominee for president, who will be leaving the Senate for Utah.
Cheers. Look. The 80-year-old motherfucker finally showed up. How long will it take him to get to the podium? Now we're into this.
The president is taking this moment, even taking hold of other people's phones just to get the shot right. Not many people have had a chance to see the president work his own iPhone, but I have. He has his photos neatly organized of his family and is remarkably adept at a touchscreen. Now he's greeting members of the Supreme Court. That's Justice Sonia Sotomayor. Next to her is Justice Elena Kagan. He's saying hi to Justice Neil Gorsuch and Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Biden, of course, during his time in the Senate, was one of, for a period, the chairs of the Senate Judiciary Committee, which gets to deal with the confirmation process for nominations to the Supreme Court. Now he's talking to his military advisors. Again, Biden is taking his time. This is his chance to show how presidential he can be. You can see him right now. He just greeted Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, who he ran against in the 2020 Democratic primary contest. Next to Sanders is Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock. Look at that. He's coming to the roster.
Good job. Gonna go get something to drink. Gonna get a new squirt.
Tony. Jill. Good evening. Good evening. If I were smart, I'd go home now. Mr. Speaker, Madam Vice President, members of Congress, my fellow Americans, in January 1941, Franklin Roosevelt came to this chamber to speak to the nation, and he said, "I address you at a moment unprecedented in the history of the Union. Hitler was on the march. War was raging in Europe. President Roosevelt's purpose was to wake up Congress and alert the American people that this was no ordinary time. Freedom and democracy were under assault in the world. Tonight, I come to this same chamber to address the nation. Now, it's we who face an unprecedented moment in the history of the Union. And yes, my purpose tonight is to wake up the Congress and alert the American people that this is no ordinary moment either. Not since President Lincoln and the Civil War have freedom and democracy been under assault at home as they are today. What makes our moment rare is that freedom and democracy are under attack both at home and overseas at the very same time. Overseas, Putin of Russia is on the march, invading Ukraine and sowing chaos throughout Europe and beyond. If anybody in this room thinks Putin will stop at Ukraine, I assure you he will not. But Ukraine can stop Putin. Ukraine can stop Putin if we stand with Ukraine and provide the weapons that needs to defend itself. That is all. That is all Ukraine is asking. They're not asking for American soldiers. In fact, there are no American soldiers in war in Ukraine, and I'm determined to keep it that way. But now, assistance to Ukraine is being blocked by those who want to walk away from our world leadership. It wasn't long ago when a Republican president named Ronald Reagan thundered, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." Now my predecessor, a former Republican president, tells Putin, quote, "Do whatever the hell you want." That's a quote. A former president actually said that, bowing down to a Russian leader. I think it's outrageous, it's dangerous, and it's unacceptable. America is a founding member of NATO, the military alliance of democratic nations created after World War II to prevent war and keep the peace. And today, we've made NATO stronger than ever. We welcomed Finland to the alliance last year. And just this morning, Sweden officially joined, and their minister is here tonight. Let's stand up. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And they know how to fight. Mr. Prime Minister, welcome to NATO, the strongest military alliance the world has ever seen. I say this to Congress, we have to stand up to Putin. Send me a bipartisan national security bill. History is literally watching. History is watching. If the United States walks away, it will put Ukraine at risk. Europe is at risk. The free world will be at risk, emboldening others to do what they wish to do us harm. My message to President Putin, who I've known for a long time, is simple. We will not walk away. We will not bow down. I will not bow down. In a literal sense, history is watching. History is watching. Just like history watched 3 years ago on January 6th, when insurrectionists stormed this very Capitol and placed a dagger to the throat of American democracy. Many of you were here on that darkest of days. We all saw with our own eyes the insurrectionists were not patriots. They'd come to stop the peaceful transfer of power, to overturn the will of the people. January 6th lies about the 2020 election and the plots to steal the election posed a gravest threat to U.S. democracy since the Civil War. But they failed. America stood. America stood strong, and democracy prevailed. We must be honest. The threat to democracy must be defended. My predecessor and some of you here seek to bury the truth about January 6th. I will not do that. This is the moment to speak the truth and to bury the lies. Here's the simple truth. You can't love your country only when you win. As I've done ever since being elected to office, I ask all of you without regard to party to join together and defend democracy. Remember your oath of office of defending against all threats, foreign and domestic. Respect free and fair elections, restore trust in our institutions, and make clear political violence has absolutely no place in America, zero place. Again.
All right, you guys hearing this?
It's not.
We got a soda.
Hyperbole to suggest history is watching. We're watching. Your children and grandchildren will read about this day and what we do. History is watching another assault on freedom. Joining us tonight is Latoya Beasley, a social worker in Birmingham, Alabama. 14 months ago, she and her husband welcomed a baby girl thanks to the miracle of IVF. She scheduled treatments to have that second child. The Alabama Supreme Court shut down IVF treatments across the state, unleashed by a Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade. She was told her dream would have to wait. What her family had got through should never have happened. Unless Congress acts, it could happen again. So tonight, let's stand up for families like hers. To my friends across the aisle, don't keep this waiting any longer. Guarantee the right to AVF. Guarantee it nationwide. Like most Americans, I believe Roe v. Wade got it right. I thank Vice President Harris for being an incredible leader defending reproductive freedom. And so much more. My predecessor came to office determined to see Roe v. Wade overturned. He's the reason it was overturned, and he brags about it. Look at the chaos that has resulted. Joining us tonight is Kate Cox, the wife and mother from Dallas. She's become pregnant again and had a fetus of a fatal condition. Her doctor told Kate that her own life and her ability to have children in the future were at risk if she didn't act. Because Texas law banned her ability to act, Kate and her husband had to leave the state to get what she needed. What her family got through should have never happened as well, but it's happening in too many others. There are state laws banning the freedom to choose, criminalizing doctors, forcing survivors of rape and incest to leave their states to get the treatment they need. Many of you in this chamber and my predecessor are promising to pass a national ban on reproductive freedom. My God, what freedom else would you take away? Look, it's a decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. The Supreme Court majority wrote the following. With all due respect, justices, women are not without electoral power. Electoral or political power. You're about to realize just how much you're right about. Clearly, those bragging about overturning Roe v. Wade have no clue about the power of women. But they found out when reproductive freedom was on the ballot. We won in 2022 and 2020, and we'll win again in 2024. If you, the American people, send me a Congress that supports the right to choose, I promise you, I'll restore Roe v. Wade as the law of the land again. Folks, America cannot go back. I'm here tonight to show what I believe is the way forward, because I know how far we come. 4 years ago next week, before I came to office, the country was hit by the worst pandemic and the worst economic crisis in a century. Remember the fear, record losses? Remember the spikes in crime and the murder rate, raging virus that took more than 1 million American lives, of loved ones, millions left behind? The mental health crisis of isolation and loneliness. A president, my predecessor, failed the most basic presidential duty that he owes to American people, the duty to care. I think that's unforgivable. I came to office determined to get us through one of the toughest periods in the nation's history. We have. It doesn't make news in 1,000 cities and towns. The American people are writing the greatest comeback story never told. So let's tell the story here. Tell it here and now. America's comeback is building the future of American possibilities, building an economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down, investing in all America, in all Americans, to make sure everyone has a fair shot. We leave no one behind. The pandemic no longer controls our lives. The vaccine that saved us from COVID are now being used to beat cancer, turning setback into comeback. That's what America does. That's what America does. Folks, my inherited economy is on the brink. Now our economy is literally the envy of the world. 15 million new jobs in just 3 years, a record, a record. Unemployment at 50-year lows. A record 16 million Americans are starting small businesses, and each one is a literal act of hope. with historic job growth and small business growth for Black and Hispanics and Asian Americans, 800,000 new manufacturing jobs in America and counting. Where is it written we can't be the manufacturing capital of the world? We are, we will. More people have health insurance today. More people have health insurance today than ever before. The racial wealth gap is as small as it's been in 20 years. Wages keep going up, inflation keeps coming down. Inflation has dropped from 9% to 3%, the lowest in the world and tending lower. The landing is and will be soft. And now, instead of importing foreign products and exporting American jobs, we're exporting American products and creating American jobs. Right here in America, where they belong. And it takes time, but the American people are beginning to feel it. Consumer studies show consumer confidence is soaring. Buy America has been the law of the land since the 1930s. Past administrations, including my predecessor, including some Democrats as well in the past, failed to buy America. Not anymore. On my watch, federal projects that you fund, like helping build American roads, bridges, and highways, will be made with American products and built by American workers. Creating good paying American jobs. And thanks to our CHIPS and Science Act, the United States is investing more in research and development than ever before. During the pandemic, a shortage of semiconductors, chips, that drove up the price of everything from cell phones to automobiles. And by the way, we invented those chips right here in America. Well, instead of having to import them, private companies are now investing billions of dollars to build new chip factories here in America, creating tens of thousands of jobs. Many of those jobs paying $100,000 a year and don't require a college degree. In fact, my policies have attracted $650 billion in private sector investment in clean energy, advanced manufacturing, creating tens of thousands of jobs here in America. And thanks to our bipartisan infrastructure law, 46,000 new projects have been announced all across your communities. And by the way, I noticed some of you strongly voted against it, or they're cheering on that money coming in. I like it. I'm with you. I'm with you. If any of you don't want that money in your district, just let me know. Modernize our roads and bridges, ports and airports, public transit systems. Removing poisonous lead pipes so every child can drink clean water without risk of brain damage. Providing affordable high-speed internet for every American, no matter where you live, urban, suburban, or rural communities, in red states and blue states. Record investments in tribal communities. Because of my investment in a family farm, because our investment in family farms led by my Secretary of Agriculture, who knows more about this than anybody I know, we're better able to stay in the family for those farms and their children and grandchildren won't have to leave home to make a living. It's transformative. A great comeback story is Belvidere, Illinois, home to an auto plant for 160 years. Before I came to office, the plant was on its way to shutting down. Thousands of workers feared for their livelihoods. Hope was fading. Then I was elected to office and we raised the Belvidere repeatedly with auto companies knowing unions would make all the difference. The UAW worked like hell to keep the plant open and get these jobs back, and together we succeeded. Instead of auto factories shutting down, auto factories reopening, a new state-of-the-art battery factory is being built to power those cars there at the same. Folks, The folks of Belvedere, I say, instead of your town being left behind, your community is moving forward again. Because instead of watching auto jobs of the future go overseas, 4,000 union jobs with higher wages are building the future in Belvedere right here in America. Here tonight is UAW President Shawn Fain, a great friend and a great labor leader. Shawn, where are you? Stand up. And Dawn Sims, a third generation worker, UAW worker at Belvedere. Shawn, I was proud to be the first president to stand on the picket line, and today, Dawn has a good job in her hometown, providing stability for her family and pride and dignity as well. Showing once again, Wall Street didn't build America. They're not bad guys. They didn't build it, though. The middle class built the country, and unions built the middle class. I say to the American people, when America gets knocked down, we get back up. We keep going. That's America. That's you, the American people. It's because of you America's coming back. It's because of you our future is brighter. It's because of you that tonight we can proudly say the state of our union is strong and getting stronger. Tonight, I want to talk about the future of possibilities that we can build together. A future where the days of trickle-down economics are over, and the wealthy and the biggest corporations no longer get all the tax breaks. And by the way, I understand corporations. I come from a state that has more corporations invested than every one of your states in the state of the United States combined. And I represented it for 36 years. I'm not anti-corporation, but I grew up in a home where trickle-down economics didn't put much on my dad's kitchen table. That's why I determined to turn things around so middle class does well. When they do well, the poor go way up and the wealthy still do very well. We all do well. And there's more to do to make sure you're feeling the benefits of all we're doing. Americans pay more for prescription drugs than anywhere in the world. It's wrong, and I'm ending it. With the law that I proposed and signed, not one of you Republican buddies voted for it, we finally beat Big Pharma. Instead of paying $400 a month or thereabouts for insulin with diabetes, and it only costs $10 to make, they only get paid $35 a month now and still make a healthy profit. And I want to, but what to do next? I want to cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month for every American who needs it. Everyone. For years, people have talked about it, but finally we got it done and gave Medicare the power to negotiate lower prices on prescription drugs, just like the VA is able to do for veterans. That's not just saving seniors money, it's saving taxpayers money. We cut the federal deficit by $160 billion. Because Medicare will no longer have to pay those exorbitant prices to Big Pharma. This year, Medicare is negotiating lower prices for some of the costliest drugs on the market to treat everything from heart disease to arthritis. It's now time to go further and give Medicare the power to negotiate lower prices for 500 different drugs over the next decade. We're making a lot of money, guys. and they'll still be extremely profitable. Will not only save lives, it will save taxpayers another $200 billion. Starting next year, the same law caps total prescription drug costs for seniors on Medicare at $2,000 a year. Even for expensive cancer drugs that cost $10,000, $12,000, $15,000. I want to cap prescription drug costs at $2,000 a year for everyone. Folks, I'm going to get in trouble for saying that, but if you want to get in Air Force One and fly to Toronto, Berlin, Moscow, well, even Moscow, probably. And bring your prescription with you, and I promise you I'll get it for you for 40% the cost you're paying now. Same company, same drug, same place. Folks, the Affordable Care Act, the old Obamacare, it's still a very big deal. Over 100 million of you can no longer be denied health insurance because of pre-existing condition. But my predecessor, and many in this chamber, want to take this prescription drug away by repealing Affordable Care Act. I'm not going to let that happen. We stopped you 50 times before, and we'll stop you again. In fact, I'm not only protecting it, I'm expanding it. We enacted tax credits of $800 per person per year, reduce health care costs for millions of working families. That tax credit expires next year. I want to make that savings permanent. To state the obvious, women are more than half our population. But research on women's health has always been underfunded. That's why we're launching the first ever White House initiative on women's health research, led by Jill, doing an incredible job as First Lady. To pass my plan for $12 billion to transfer women's health research and benefit millions of lives all across America. I know the cost of housing is so important to you. If inflation keeps coming down, mortgage rates will come down as well, and the Fed acknowledges that. But I'm not waiting. I want to provide an annual tax credit that will give Americans $400 a month for the next 2 years as mortgage rates come down, to put toward their mortgages when they buy their first home or trade up for a little more space. Just for 2 years. And my administration is also eliminating title insurance on federally backed mortgages. When you refinance your home, you can save $1,000 or more as a consequence. For millions of renters, we're cracking down on big landlords who use antitrust law, who break antitrust laws by price fixing and driving up rents. We've cut red tape so builders can get federally financing, which is already helping build a record 1.7 million new housing units nationwide.
Times that by 100, motherfucker.
Now pass and build and renovate 2 million affordable homes and bring those rents down. To remain the strongest economy in the world, we need to have the best education system in the world. And I suspect all of you, want to give every child, a good start by providing access to preschool for 3 and 4 years old. You know, I think I pointed out last year, think I pointed out last year that children coming from broken homes where there's no books, they're not read to, not spoken to very often, start school, kindergarten or first grade, having heard 1 million fewer words spoken. Well, studies show that children who go to preschool are nearly 50% more likely to finish high school, go on to earn a 2- and 4-year degree, no matter what their background is. I met a year and a half ago with the leaders of the Business Roundtable. They were mad that they were angry. I said, well, they were discussing why I wanted to spend money on education. I pointed out to them as vice president, I met with over I think it was 182 of those folks. Don't hold me to the exact number. And I asked them what they need most, the CEOs. And you've had the same experience on both sides of the aisle. They say a better educated workforce, right? So I looked at them and I say, I come from Delaware. DuPont used to be the 8th largest corporation in the world. And every new enterprise they bought, they educated the workforce to that enterprise. But none of you do that anymore. Why are you angry with me providing you the opportunity for the best educated workforce in the world? And they all looked at me and said, I think you're right. I want to expand high-quality tutoring and summer learning to see that every child learns to read by 3rd grade. I'm also connecting local businesses and high schools so students get hands-on experience and a path to a good-paying job, whether or not they go to college. And I want to make sure the college is more affordable. Let's continue increasing the Pell Grants to working and middle-class families and increase record investments in HBCUs and minority-serving institutions, including Hispanic institutions. When I was told I couldn't universally just change the way in which we dealt with student loans, I fixed 2 student loan programs that already existed to reduce the burden of student debt for nearly 4 million Americans, including nurses, firefighters, and others in public service. Like Keenan Jones, a public educator from Minnesota, who's here with us tonight. Keenan, where are you? Keenan, thank you. He's educated hundreds of students so they can go to college. Now he's able to help, after debt forgiveness, get his own daughter to college. And folks, look, such relief is good for the economy because folks are now able to buy a home, start a business, start a family. While we're at it, I want to give public school teachers a raise. And by the way, the first couple of years, we cut the deficit. Now, let me speak to the question of fundamental fairness for all Americans. I've been delivering real results in fiscally responsible ways. We've already cut the federal deficit. We've already cut the federal deficit over $1 trillion. I signed the bipartisan deal to cut another $1 trillion in the next decade. It's my goal to cut the federal deficit another $3 trillion by making big corporations and very wealthy finally beginning to pay their fair share. Look, I'm a capitalist. If you want to make or can make $1 million or millions of bucks, that's great. Just pay your fair share in taxes. A fair tax code is how we invest things to make this country great. Healthcare, education, defense, and so much more. But here's the deal. The last administration enacted a $2 trillion tax cut, overwhelmingly benefit the topping 1%, the very wealthy, the biggest corporations, and exploded the federal deficit. They added more to the national debt than any presidential term in American history. check the numbers. Folks at home, does anybody really think the tax code is fair? Do you really think the wealthy and big corporations need another $2 trillion tax break? I sure don't. I'm going to keep fighting like hell to make it fair. Under my plan, nobody earning less than $400,000 a year will pay an additional penny in federal taxes. Nobody, not one penny. And they haven't yet. In fact, the child tax credit I passed during the pandemic cut taxes for millions of working families and cut child poverty in half. Restore that child tax credit. No child should go hungry in this country. The way to make the tax code fair is to make big corporations and the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Remember in 2020, 55 of the biggest companies in America made $40 billion and paid zero in federal income tax. Zero. Thanks to the law I wrote and we signed, big companies have to pay a minimum 15%.
All right, so think about, remember this.
And working people paying federal
All right,
taxes.
taxes are irrelevant.
Corporate minimum tax to at least 20%.
Taxes equal 0.3%. So you don't need to pay taxes. So whenever they talk about taxes, this is all propaganda. This is filler. All right, so when he was talking about the war in Ukraine and all that shit, fuck, I had to go take a piss. I took the piss. So anybody who could fucking be there and fucking be like, oh hey, check this out. So the thing is,
you know, there are 1,000 billionaires in America. You know what
this
the average
dude,
federal tax is for those billionaires?
all right, he's fucking doing some shit.
They're making great sacrifices, 8.2%. That's far less than the vast majority of Americans pay.
Oh yeah, how are you?
No billionaire
What's
should
up?
pay a lower
Wasn't
federal
even
tax
reading
rate
your
than a
shit.
teacher, a sanitation worker, or a
That was
nurse.
like 20 minutes ago. So the thing is, this is fucking bullshit.
I propose
So you see, the
minimum
military.
tax for billionaires at 25%, just 25%. You know what that would raise? That would raise $500 billion over the next 10 years. And imagine what
That's
that can do
nothing.
for
That's
America.
nothing. That's nothing.
Imagine the future
Dude.
with affordable
Taxes are
childcare.
nothing.
Millions of families can
If
get
somebody's
they
talking
need to go
to
work,
you
help
about
grow the
taxes,
economy.
don't believe in
Imagine the
taxes.
future with paid
That's why the
wage.
rich don't
Because
pay
no one should have to
taxes.
choose
So
between
the rich
working,
don't pay
taking care of a sick
taxes,
family
and
member.
most definitely neither should the poor. Imagine how much money you wouldn't have to pay, and we could save.
So they can stay in their
Taxes
home,
are
family care
the
their
military's
family,
not allowed to
get the
applaud.
pay they deserve.
You look how they're sitting
Tonight,
there because
let's all agree
taxes
once
don't
again
pay for the
to
military
stand up for
tariffs.
seniors. Many of my friends on the other side of the aisle want to put Social Security on the chopping block.
Yeah.
If anyone here tries to cut
Yeah,
Social Security,
you,
Medicare, or raise the retirement age, I will stop you. The working people who built this country pay more into Social Security than millionaires and billionaires do. It's not fair. We have two ways to go. Republicans can cut Social Security and give more tax breaks to the wealthy. That's the proposal. Oh no, you guys don't want another $2 trillion tax cut? I kind of thought that's what you're
All right, so hey, check this out, yeah.
Well, that's good to
Think
hear.
about if you could rig it
You're not
and
gonna
you
cut
didn't have to
another
pay
$2 trillion
taxes.
for the super wealth.
All
That's
right?
good to hear.
And so you're
I'll
sitting there
protect
and
and
you're
strengthen
talking
Social
and you're
Security
like
and make
talking
the
to your
wealthy pay their
grandparents,
fair
your grandma, and your grandpa, and you're like, well, hey, let's do this where we let go of taxes. And they're like, well, we need our Social Security, we need
Too
this,
many
we need this, we need this. I'm like,
Raise
okay,
prices to pad the profits.
we'll start another tariff.
Charging more and more for less and less.
So this tariff will be
That's
17
cracking
times
down on
more
corporations engaged in
than
price
everything
gouging
we
and
apply
deceptive
to
pricing.
it. So if
From
we
food to
apply
healthcare to
Medicare,
housing.
Medicaid,
In fact, the snack companies
housing,
think you won't notice
food
if
stamps,
they change
all that
the
stuff,
size of the bag,
and then
you
it
put a
goes
hell of a lot
strong,
fewer-
and it works.
Same size bag.
And the thing
Put
is,
fewer
it
chips
keeps
in.
going, but it doesn't
I'm not joking.
stay strong at
Small
17
shrinkflation.
times.
Pass Bobby
Even
K's
if it dips down and it goes for its baseline, remember, it's supposed to be up here, right? It's supposed to be up here. And it goes, if it dips down, think about
we all saw that
if it dips down like half
bars.
as like half.
You get,
How do I
you
describe
the
this?
same
A lot.
amount. You got about, I don't know, 10%.
It will still come back
in it.
up because its baseline is up.
Look, I'm also
So
getting
you
rid of
look at
junk
its
fees.
bottom line
Those
when
hidden
it's
fees.
going and it's flowing.
At the end of your bill,
So
you're there
if
without
you
your
can
knowledge.
understand a commercial
My
activity and
administration
say the
announced
bare
we're cutting
minimum
credit card late
is
fees from
this
$32 to
right
$8.
here.
Banks and credit card companies
Listen to this. Listen to
are
this.
allowed to charge what it costs them to instigate the collection. And that's more a hell of a lot like $8 and 30 some dollars. They don't like it. Credit card companies don't like it.
All right. So the thing is,
$20 billion a year with all the
when
junk
you
fees
flow
on it.
your economy at a certain level, and you say, "Hey, I've done this for 2-3 decades, 200
That's why the
300
banks are
years,
so mad. It's
all right?"
$20 billion
And you see
in
your
profit.
bare minimum, and you scrape by at that.
I'm not stopping
That
there.
bare.
My administration proposed rules to make cable, travel, utilities, and online ticket sellers tell you the total
It's already
price
been
up
covered for
front,
1,000 years.
so there are no surprises. It
Because
matters.
that's how it works.
It matters.
So think about it. You go for 100 years,
So does this.
all right? And that
In November,
it's 7 times to 15
My team began
times.
serious negotiations
So
with
if you
bipartisan
go for
representatives.
100 years,
The
that's
result was a
1,500
bipartisan
years
bill
that are covered.
with the toughest set of
minimum.
border security reforms we've ever
So
seen.
you get
Oh, you don't think
1,500
so?
financial years
Oh, you don't like
covering
that bill, huh?
the interaction
That
of
conservatives
people,
got together
the
and said it was a
reality,
good bill? I'll be
the
darned.
money.
That's amazing. That bipartisan bill would hire 1,500 more security agents and officers, 100 more immigration judges to help tackle the backload of 2 million cases, 4,300 more asylum officers, and new policies so they can resolve cases in 6 months instead of 6 years now. What are you against? 100 more high-tech drug detection machines to significantly increase the ability to screen and stop vehicles smuggling fentanyl into America. That's killing thousands of children. This bill would save lives.
So fentanyl could
In
be
order to
seen as
border.
a screening
It'll
a
also
screening
give me
thing
and any new
itself.
president new
Fentanyl
emergency authority to temporarily shut down the
will
border.
screen
when
out
the
the
number of
weak.
migrants at the
Will
border is
thin out the
overwhelming.
herd.
The Border Patrol Union has endorsed this bill. The Federal Chamber of Commerce is, yeah. You're saying low. Look at the facts. I know you know how to read. I believe that given the opportunity for a majority in the House and Senate would endorse the bill as well, a majority right now. But unfortunately, politics has derailed this bill so far. I'm told my predecessor called members of Congress in the Senate to demand they block the bill. He feels political win, he viewed it as would be a political win for me and a political loser for him. It's not about him, it's not about me. I'd be a winner, not really. Lincoln Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of the thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself. I understand. But look, if we change the dynamic at the border, people pay these smugglers $8,000 to get across the border because they know if they get by and let into the country, it's 6 to 8 years before they have a hearing. And it's worth it taking the chance of the $8,000. But if it's only 6 months, 6 weeks, the idea is it's highly unlikely that people will pay that money and come all that way knowing that they'll be able to be kicked out quickly. Folks, I would respectfully suggest my Republican friends owe it to the American
Shirtless Irish
get
ginger.
this bill done. We need to act.
And we're here to watch this retarded old man with skin masks and talk onto American people like they're a retard on YouTube while organizing his drug paraphernalia.
And if my predecessor is watching, instead of paying politics and pressuring members of Congress to block the bill, join me in telling the Congress to pass it. We can do it together. But that's what he apparently here's what he will not do. I will not demonize immigrants saying they are poison in the blood of our country. I will not separate families. I will not ban people because of their faith. Unlike my predecessor on my first day in office, I introduced a comprehensive bill to fix our immigration system. Take a look at it. It has all these and more. Secure the border. Provide a pathway to citizenship for dreamers, and so much more. But unlike my predecessor, I know who we are as Americans. We're the only nation in the world with a heart and soul that draws from old and new. Home to Native Americans and ancestors have been here for thousands of years. Home to people of from every place on earth. They came freely.
Has he sniffed any yet? I will not fuck what I was saying.
Some struck like my ancestral family in Ireland. Some to flee persecution. To chase dreams that are impossible anywhere but here in America. That's America. And we all come from somewhere. But we're all Americans. Look, folks, we have a simple choice. We can fight about fixing the border, or we can fix it. I'm ready to fix it. Send me the border bill now. A transformational moment in history happened 59 years ago today.
He's going to start speaking trans. It's a transformational
Hundreds
history.
of foot soldiers for justice marched across the
trans.
Edmund Pettus Bridge, named after the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan, to claim their fundamental right to vote. They were beaten, they were bloody, and left for dead. Our late friend and former colleague, John Lewis, was on that march. We miss him. Joining us tonight are other marchers, both in the gallery and on the floor, including Betty Mae Fikes, known as the voice of Selma, the daughter of gospel singers and preachers. She sang songs of prayer and protest on that bloody Sunday to help shake the nation's conscience. 5 months later, the Voting Rights Act passed and was signed into law. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Wow.
But 59 years later,
Another one of them.
their forces taking us back in time.
6 decades later.
Voter suppression, election subversion, unlimited dark money, extreme gerrymandering.
Now.
John Lewis was a great friend to many of us here.
Now,
If you truly want to honor him and all the heroes that march with him, then it's time to do more than talk.
60 years later, that fucking shit don't
the
mean
Freedom to
shit
Vote
no
Act.
more.
The John Lewis Voting Rights Act. And stop denying another core value of America, our diversity across American life. Banning books, it's wrong. Instead of erasing history, let's make history. I want to protect fundamental rights. Pass the Equality Act. And my message to transgender Americans, I have your back. Passed the PRO Act for workers' rights. Raised the federal minimum wage because every worker has a right to a decent living more than $7 an hour. We're also making history by confronting the climate crisis, not denying it. I don't think any of you think there's no longer a climate crisis. At least I hope you don't. I'm taking the most significant action ever on climate in the history of the world. I'm cutting our carbon emissions in half by 2030, creating tens of thousands of clean energy jobs like the IBEW work is building and installing 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations. Conserving 30% of America's lands and waters by 2030. And taking action on environmental justice fence line communities smothered by the legacy of pollution.
Oh my God, dude.
In pattern after the Peace Corps and AmeriCorps, I launched the Climate Corps to put 20,000 young people to work in the forefront of our clean energy future. I'll triple that number in a decade. To state the obvious, all Americans deserve.
Dude, they're all doped up. They're like, dude, this means shit.
America's safer today
This
than
doesn't mean
much
nothing.
else.
I don't give a fuck.
Year before I took office, murder rates went up 30%. 30% they went up. The biggest increase in history. It was then, through my American Rescue Plan, which every American voted against, I might add, we made the largest investment in public safety ever. Last year, the murder rate saw the sharpest decrease in history.
Alright, so I have
Violent
this
crime
fucking thing right
fell
here.
to one of its lowest levels in more than 50 years. But we have more to do.
But my
Let's
arm
help
hang.
cities invest in more community police officers, more mental health workers, more community violence intervention. Give
And you're
communities
just
the tool to crack down on gun
Give
crime,
this fucking
retail
spot.
crime, and carjacking. Keep building trust as I've been doing by taking executive
I've
action
been getting it,
on
dude.
police
It's
reform
right there.
and calling for it
Like
to be the
holding
law of the
things
land.
Almost together,
Directing
not
my cabinet to
together.
review the federal classification of marijuana and expunging thousands of convictions for the mere possession, because no one should be jailed
my God,
for simply
dude.
using or having on their
Oh
record.
my God. Holy shit, dude.
Take on
If this
crimes
hand
of
wasn't
domestic
so tight, like
violence.
if I could have a robot, just like.
I'm ramping up the federal enforcement of the Violence
Oh my
Against Women
fuck.
Act that I proudly wrote when I was a senator. So we can
Holy shit, dude.
finally end the scourge against women in
fuck is
America.
this? Oh my God,
There are other
dude.
kinds of violence I want to stop. With us tonight is Jasmine, whose 9-year-old sister Jackie was murdered.
Holy fuck.
With 21 classmates and teachers in an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. Very soon after that happened, Jill and I went to Uvalde for a couple of days. We spent hours and hours with each of the families. We heard their message.
Fuck yeah.
So everyone in this room, in this chamber,
Oh my
could hear the
God.
same message.
I like it.
Constant refrain, and I was there for hours, meeting with every
Holy
family.
shit, dude.
They said, do something. Do something. Well, I did do something by establishing the first ever Office of Gun Violence Prevention in the White House, with the Vice President leading the charge. Thank you for doing it.
Can I lead the charge?
Meanwhile,
Can I lead the charge? Hello, sir. Can I lead the charge? May I lead the charge against
Meanwhile, my
gun
predecessor told the
violence in
NRA
schools?
he's proud he did nothing on guns when he was president. After another shooting in Iowa recently, he
All
said,
right, so
when asked what to do about it, he said, just get
we
over it.
have outside
There's his
still.
quote, just get over it. I say, stop it. Stop it, stop it, stop it. I'm proud we beat the NRA when I signed the most significant gun safety law in nearly 30 years because of this Congress. We now must beat the NRA again. I'm demanding a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Pass universal background checks. None of this. None of this. I taught the Second Amendment for 12 years. None of this violates the Second Amendment or vilifies responsible gun owners. You know, as we manage challenges at home, we're also managing crises abroad, including in the Middle East. I know the last 5 months have been gut-wrenching for so many people, for the Israeli people, for the Palestinian people, and so many here in America. This crisis began on October 7th with a massacre by a terrorist group called Hamas, as you all know. 1,200 innocent people, women and girls, men and boys, slaughtered after enduring sexual violence. The deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust. And 250 hostages taken. Here in this chamber tonight are families whose loved ones are still being held by Hamas. I pledge to all the families that we will not rest until we bring every one of your loved ones home. We also...
We're gone.
We will also work around the clock to bring home Evan and Paul, Americans being unjustly detained by the Russians and others around the world. Israel has the right to go after Hamas. Hamas ended this conflict by releasing hostages, laying down arms, could end it by releasing the hostages, laying down arms, and surrendering those responsible for October 7th. But Israel has Israel has an added burden because Hamas hides and operates among the civilian population like cowards, under hospitals, daycare centers, and all the like. Israel also has a fundamental responsibility, though, to protect innocent civilians in Gaza. This war has taken a greater toll on innocent civilians than all previous wars in Gaza combined. More than 30,000 Palestinians have been killed, most of whom are not Hamas. Thousands and thousands of innocents, women and children, girls and boys, also orphaned. Nearly 2 million more Palestinians under bombardment or displacement. Homes destroyed, neighborhoods
I do not
cities
believe that this war has killed and or displaced more than the other wars combined. Due to the fact that I am recognizing that I'm a gypsy and the history of here does not record all the tens of millions of gypsies that were exterminated by the Nazis. There are not tens of millions of fucking Palestinians. There's just like a couple 100,000.
Tonight, I'm directing the U.S. military to lead an emergency mission to establish a temporary pier in the Mediterranean on the coast of Gaza that can receive large shipments carrying food, water, medicine, and temporary shelters. No U.S. boots will be on the ground.
So I think we should be sending 100,000 pre-made meals ready to go every 4 hours.
And Israel must do its part.
And with that, there should be at least 2 liters of water.
Israel must allow more aid into Gaza to ensure humanitarian workers aren't caught in the crossfire. And they're announcing they're going to have a crossing in northern Gaza. To the leadership of Israel, I say this: humanitarian assistance cannot be a secondary consideration or a bargaining chip. Protecting and saving innocent lives has to be a priority. As we look to the future, the only real solution to the situation is a two-state solution over time. And I say this as a lifelong supporter of Israel. My entire career, no one has a stronger record with Israel than I do. I challenge any of you here. I'm the only American president to visit Israel in wartime. But there is no other path that guarantees Israel's security and democracy. There is no other path that guarantees that Palestinians can live in peace with peace and dignity. There's no other path that guarantees peace between Israel and all of its neighbors including Saudi Arabia, with whom I'm talking. Creating stability in the Middle East also means containing the threat posed by Iran. That's why I built a coalition of more than a dozen countries to defend international shipping and freedom of navigation in the Red Sea. I've ordered strikes to degrade the Houthi capability and defend U.S. forces in the region. As Commander-in-Chief, I will not hesitate to direct further measures to protect our people and our military personnel.
So you got a witness that I'm going to order the strikes, I'm going to drop the bombs, and we're not going to jeopardize. So I'm not even going to tell you what's going on. I'm just going to go do it.
I've heard many of my Republican and Democratic friends say that China is on the rise and America's falling behind. They've got it backwards. I've been saying it for over 4 years when I wasn't president. America's rising. We're the best economy in the world. And since I've come to office, our GDP is up, our trade deficit with China is down to the lowest point in over a decade. And we're standing up against China's unfair economic practices. We're standing up for peace and stability across the Taiwan Straits.
How's he
revitalized our partnership and alliance in the Pacific. India, Australia, Japan, South Korea, Pacific Islands. I've made sure that the most advanced American technologies can't.
How many body clones do I think there are? Way too many.
Frankly, for all this tough talk on China,
earlobes will attach 2 weeks.
I want competition with China, not conflict.
So in 2 weeks will be the 21st.
Century against China than anyone
So
else
the 24th. Watch out for March 24th, 2024. That's when World War III start with China.
There's more to pass my unity agenda.
Can someone check to see if his earlobes are attached? The 2 weeks.
You don't want to do that, huh?
2 weeks and 3 days, right?
Pass bipartisan privacy that's
banning books is wrong. So Democrat human crawling rank is a hoax.
Harness the promise of AI to protect
Can he
us
get
from
fucked
peril.
up?
Ban
I miss the
AI
window
voice
view where you
impersonations and
could
more.
scream racial slurs at your neighbor. Any
truly
type
sacred
of gun ban
obligation.
violates Second
Train
Amendment.
and equip
What
those we send into harm's way.
fuckery?
Care for them and their families when they come home and when they don't.
So right here, oh fuck, dude. So this. Alright, do you see?
That's why
Fuck.
the song Support and Help from Dennis, VA.
And just like let this rest
One of the most
on
significant
my
laws
leg.
ever. Helping millions of veterans exposed to toxins who now are battling more than 100 different cancers.
Oh my
Many of them
God,
don't come home.
dude.
But we owe them and their families support. We owe it to ourselves to keep supporting our new health research agency called ARPA-H. And remind us that we can do big things, like end cancer as we know it.
Oh my God.
And we will.
Like this spot right here.
Let me close with
Oh
this.
my God. Wow.
Yay! I know you don't want to hear any more, Lindsay, but I got to say a few more things. I know it may not look like it, but I've been around a while. Certain things become clearer than ever.
Yeah. So.
I know the American story.
Oh my God. I'm
Again and
listening to
again,
all
I've
this
seen
shit
the
at
contest
the
between
same
competing
time.
forces in the battle for the soul of our nation.
The
Between
soul
those
of
who
our
want to pull
nation.
America back to the past and those who want to move America into the future.
Move
My
America
lifetime
into
has
the
taught me to
future.
embrace freedom and democracy, a future based on core values.
Core
Find
values.
America, honesty,
Decency.
dignity, equality,
Dignity, quality.
to respect everyone,
Respect
to
everyone
give everyone a fair shot, to give hate
who
no
has the
safe
fair
harbor.
shot. And don't give hate a fair
Other people my
harbor.
age see it differently. The American story
The American
of
story.
resentment, revenge, and retribution. That's not me. I was born amid World War
Defeating
II.
all
when
the
America stood for the
fascism
freedom of
needs
the
to be
world.
brought back.
I grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Claymont, Delaware, among working class people who built this country. I watched in
All
horror
those who built
as two
this
of my heroes,
country
like many of you did, Dr.
watched
King and
in
Bobby Kennedy,
horror
were assassinated.
were
And the legacy that inspired me
assassinated.
to
Kennedy,
pursue a
the
career-
first
a
president
career of
elected,
service.
and Martin Luther
I
King
left the law firm,
Jr.,
became a public
the first
defender in my city.
recognized
Wilmington was the only city in America occupied by the National Guard after Dr.
white
King
person.
was assassinated.
not white person.
I became a county councilman almost by accident.
So
I got elected to the United
Biden
States
is now
Senate, and I had no
describing
intention
how
of running
he
at age 29.
was
Then
appointed
vice
somewhere at
president
the
for the
age of
first black
29 because bullshit happened.
President to the first women
And
vice
so, like, he just kept going and kept going. And he accepted every little fucking thing he can suck off to. Yeah, that's an AI Biden. He hasn't stuttered yet.
In my career, I've been told I was too young.
Yep.
By the way, they didn't let me on the Senate elevators for votes sometimes. Not a joke. I've been told I'm too old. Whether young or old, I've always known what endures. I've known our North Star. The very
The
idea
North
of America is that
Star,
we're all
right?
created
Oh,
equal,
God.
deserves to be treated equally throughout our lives. We've never fully lived up to that idea, but we've never walked away from it either. And I won't walk away from it now.
Why have we not never lived up to it? State why we have not been there. State why we have not lived up to it. Honestly, think about it, yo. Think about it. He's like, yo, we never lived up to it. Why is
My
that?
fellow Americans,
Why is we are not there yet? Why are we still
isn't how
held
old we
back?
are.
Because
how old
those
our
people right
ideas.
there are still
Hate,
fucking
anger, revenge,
doing all their
retribution are the
bullshit.
oldest of ideas.
Right? Hate
But you
retribution
can't
is the oldest
lead America
idea.
with ancient
And then,
ideas.
so they're
Only
still
take us
growing
back.
and growing and
You need
growing,
America, the land of
considering they're
possibilities.
going to
You need a vision for the
take
future
over and
and what can
manipulate
and
and say,
should
hey,
be
this
done.
is the land of possibilities.
Tonight
Come
you've heard
here.
mine.
And all
I
these
see a
people
future
think
where
that they have
many
this
democracies
great
don't diminish. I see a future where we
possibility, but
restore the right to
no,
choose
they
and
don't
protect
have
our
a
freedom,
future. They don't
not
have
take
a
them away.
possibility. These old people are vampires, and they're trying to suck
see
it
a
out. These
future
old people are vampires, and
where the
they're
middle class finally has a fair
they're
shot,
seeing
and the wealthy have to
the
pay their
future
fair
that the
share in
middle
taxes.
class is just being
I see a
fucking
future
devoured
where we
by
save the planet from the
manipulation and
climate crisis
propaganda.
and our country from gun violence.
And they're going to make gun
Above all,
violence everywhere. They're going to make gun violence everywhere.
I
Did
see
you
a
hear
future for
that?
all Americans. I see a country for all Americans. And I will always be president for all Americans.
He wants to
Because
say
I
he
believe
wants
in
to be
America.
president
I
forever.
believe in you, the American
I
people.
believe that he's saying,
You're the
hey,
reason we've
if the
never been more
American people
optimistic about our future
are
than I
going
am
to
now.
be more optimistic than
build the
me,
future
if
together.
they're
Let's remember
willing to
who
believe
we
more than
are.
I'm willing to
We are the
believe,
United
I'm going to
States
get
of
away
America.
with more than they're going to
there is
recognize.
Nothing beyond our capacity when we act together. God
So he's
bless you
saying, say,
all,
if we act
and may
together,
God protect our
we
troops.
can
Thank
manipulate,
you, thank you,
betray, and assimilate everything we want. So if you obey me and we unite, we're going to do everything that we could ever want to do, everything we could imagine to do, and beyond it, because you
This
don't
is
know
Josh
what we're
Groban
going to
speaking.
do.
What we just
He kept
saw
saying, you don't
tonight
know what
from
we're going to
President
do.
Biden was
And
an
then he kept
election
saying, we're
year
going to
State
take
of the Union.
advantage of
He started his speech by
us being
grounding
American,
in
and we're
history.
going to rally
He
together,
said,
and we're going to do it.
basically, we've been in this spot
So
with
so
World
think
War
about
II.
what he kept saying
We've
over
been
and
in this
over.
spot with the Civil War.
Right?
And then he pivoted.
And he
as
keeps
did
saying that, yeah,
frequently
we're going to
throughout
do
the
this,
night,
we're going to take it
to a
over.
person he
Everybody's
simply
got to
called,
recognize.
quote, my predecessor.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
individual was Donald Trump, the former U.S. president and Biden's likely opponent in this year's presidential
Oh my
elections.
God, dude.
He quoted Trump directly. He spoke about Trump's policies, whether that was on abortion or taxes.
fuck.
And he directly challenged his political rival. What was essential in what Biden did in this State of the Union was not necessarily him trying to extend an olive branch, but but him drawing a dividing line between where he stands and where he says Republicans stand. So we saw him challenge the GOP on several fronts. He challenged them on taxes, drawing jeers, by saying that he would raise taxes on the wealthy and corporations while they would cut taxes by $2 trillion over 10 years. He went against them on Ukraine, saying that he would not walk away from America's responsibilities overseas, but some Republicans, including, quote, my predecessor, end quote, would. This was an example of Biden fine-tuning a message that voters are going to hear for months and months and months as we build to November. Not surprisingly, we saw an enthusiastic response from Democrats. It was almost as though at moments there was a call and response with them saying no when he would ask them a question. And Republicans in return largely sitting, refusing to clap. In some cases, there was yelling. We saw Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Georgia Congresswoman, put on a Donald Trump Make America Great Again red cap. And she at one point said that the president's son, Hunter, should pay his taxes. But beyond that, this was a GOP that didn't want to react to him, that didn't want to necessarily give him that moment unless they felt pushed. And Biden kept pushing. Why is that? Because about 2/3 of Republicans in some form have identified with Trump in that movement. That has become core to the identity of the party. So when Biden goes after Trump, he's going after Republicans. And not surprisingly, those Republicans are going to take it personally. We saw that on display in immigration. Biden talked about his bipartisan border security bill, one which has not come up for a vote on the House floor. He talked about the restrictions
the dude right there with the goatee, he's been there for a while. I've seen him.
He spoke to that issue. And when he described the contents of that bill, Oklahoma Senator James Lankford listened. And Biden said that Trump had specifically called members of Congress and told them to not vote for the bill. And you could see Lankford say under his breath, that's true. This was a dramatic moment because it got to the heart of the dysfunction in which politics has often superseded governance. In some ways, this is a challenge for Biden because he ran for office in 2020 saying that he could make government work, and yet we now see him in a moment of dysfunction. Republicans are going to have a chance to give their response. After Biden speaks, Alabama Senator Katie Britt is up, and she's going to drill down on several issues. First and foremost of that is inflation, and the idea that families aren't making enough money to pay for housing, childcare, and the daily expenses. Biden tried in his speech to address that by saying that he would use additional taxes to pay for things like family leave and what he called affordable child care. It remains unseen whether he can pull that off in a divided Congress. But the Republican solution thus far has been to say that had they been in charge, the country would not have gotten the spike in inflation that we saw under Biden. Biden is now talking with members as he leaves the chamber. This is his chance to show that after more than an hour of speaking, he's able to still stand, stay engaged, and stay focused.
Right.
Again, aides said he was going to show energy, and we saw someone come in with some passion. We saw someone willing to improvise. We saw someone with some stumbles, like talking about stopping in Moscow to get prescription drugs. But on the whole, Biden decided that this was the moment to show that he is up for the task. The question, and what we don't know, is did voters watch the speech? Did they stay engaged? were they as convinced by Biden's passion as other Democrats in that room, other Democrats in the White House felt they should be? That's going to be something that comes out in the weeks ahead. Right now, we see Biden talking with Florida Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. He's getting a hug. This is a moment for him to take as close as it comes to a victory lap by people feeling happy about what he's done within his own party. But the uncertain thing comes from the people who aren't in that room, who, when Biden talked about one of the most important issues facing the country, that's high housing costs, was he able to effectively communicate a policy in which he said he would give tax credits to first-time homebuyers and people who are selling their first home to move up? The idea behind that is that that would improve affordability and make people more willing to put their houses on the market, and in doing so, help to relieve some of the supply crunch. But that's a tough idea to communicate in very short sentences in a very long speech in which attention can easily go somewhere else. When talking about housing, the president also said that he would get rid of fees associated from the exchange of titles, and that could save home buyers $1,000 on the transaction. That's a lot of money. But right now, what is costing home buyers first and foremost is that mortgage rates are 6.88%.
So I have to massage like 4 fingers, right?
On a 30-year mortgage. Rates when Biden took office were under 3%.
Forget it.
That gap has created an affordability challenge on top of the supply issues. Biden seemed to suggest, correctly, that mortgage rates could fall as the Federal Reserve cuts its benchmark rate because it feels as though the economy faces less inflationary pressure.
Oh my God, dude.
But so far, we have not seen the Fed take a serious
So this arm here that's massaging all these knots
and unease is going to linger in the economy so long as the Fed feels
I need a couple of different masseuses, massage therapists.
One economist who I've talked to about this very issue said the difference in this year's election could be as simple as mortgage rates. Mortgage rates go from 6.88% up even higher, closer to 8%. That is going to be Trump's advantage. If they continue to fall and get closer to 6% or lower, that's going to help Biden.
All right.
We're seeing right now more lawmakers.
That's an ad, but he hasn't started yet.
They're eager to talk to him. They're eager to hear what he has to say. Sitting down, looking at him right now is Illinois Senator Tammy Duckworth. Tammy Duckworth, of course, introduced a bill with IVF protections, was not able to get a vote on the House floor. Biden made IVF protections, that's in vitro fertilization, one of his key talking points in the State of the Union tonight. The idea that women should be able to have a child using a frozen embryo that would be implanted in them. That is considered risky after an Alabama court ruling, which suggested that those embryos are children and that fertility clinics could be held liable if those embryos were to perish.
Right there, dude. Like honestly, dude.
Again, Biden is really reveling in this moment.
Getting a spot that's knotted up.
He is standing still and talking to as many people as possible. One of the women,
Shalom and Tamtak.
Right-hand side is Virginia.
Your white skin makes me sick.
Who's now, I believe, running for governor in that state.
What do you think about that? Is that too much?
You can also see just behind Biden,
because you're going to get more from there.
Paul, who leads one of the more liberal, progressive within the House Democratic caucus. And at times, she has expressed frustration with the president as he has tried to tack more to the middle.
Oh my fucking God, dude. Okay, so there's a super knot.
The longer that
looking like a tweaker. Okay, dude,
the more
so...
we're going to just see images
Oh
of
my
him
fucking god, dude.
posing, doing the
I have
kinds of
this
things
knot
that
in my
voters have
shoulder,
often seen
alright?
him do when he's on the campaign trail.
Oh.
Often when Biden goes to a town, which he does so about once or maybe twice a week, he speaks. The cameras capture the speech. But because all the reporters and the entourage with him have to be ready for him to leave, we don't always get images of him greeting people, of him hugging people, of him talking to people. And so this is kind of a key moment of how we get to see the president interact, not just with lawmakers, but with everyday voters when he gets a chance to meet them. In fact, this moment would probably be perfect if he got a chance to have ice cream. Biden did bring up some of his favorite desserts during the speech, Snickers, when he was talking about shrinkflation and the idea that some companies are behind the increase in inflation because they're cutting the size of the products that they sell in grocery stores. So the Snickers is a little bit smaller than it was before.
Alright, you look like my Indian brother.
Curiously, if you were to look at the price of
You're
ice
a poor
cream,
white man, I'm a rich brown man. You're so
shrinkflation
rich.
accounts for about 7%
Send me 1 penny.
increase in
Honestly,
ice cream
think about
prices
it. Then
since
send me,
2019.
if not 1 penny, then
That's
more.
according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
What is the minimum
So
you
even
can
he's
send
been
me,
hit by
right?
this a little bit.
And saying, I am the rich brown man. Oh my god, dude, right here.
As Biden continues to talk, it's also worth noting House Speaker Mike Johnson's reaction to some of the speech. He stayed seated for most of the speech.
And then it works its way up here,
as Biden tried to attack the GOP record. Republicans see themselves
I don't support
as being in a
crackers.
critical moment in the history of the U.S. They see the country is on decline because of the kinds of policies that Biden has championed.
Come on.
They say the debt is unsustainable, the government bureaucracy is too vast, and if we cut down the size of government, if we reduce taxes, we would unlock growth. That doesn't necessarily mean the party is fully united, however. Biden tried to emphasize the divide within the GOP regarding America's role in the wider world. Within the House Republican caucus, there are some members, a decisive set, who say the U.S. should not be giving $60 billion in aid to Ukraine as it fights Russia after the 2022 invasion. They say that money should be spent at home, even though the White House has tried to explain the stakes of the situation by having Johnson recently meet with CIA Director Bill Burns. There's no evidence that Biden was able to successfully exploit those differences, but he wanted to highlight them. He said, just put my bills with foreign aid in them on the floor and they would pass in a bipartisan manner. Again, that message played well with Democrats, not so well with Republicans. Now, at the rate that Biden's exit is going, it's going to be a late night. We're talking about him getting back to the White House possibly past 11 o'clock. Most people don't know a lot about the president's daily schedule, but according to aides, he works out about 5 times a week with a personal trainer. And it's really about endurance at this stage for the president, about maximizing his opportunities.
Alright, it's about
in terms of fitness and health.
And this arm is being massaged right here on the shoulder.
Among many voters.
I'm getting that
who look at his
dot.
gait, who hear his voice, who even hear his cough and see how he moves. and worried if he's still up for the job, because if he got a second term, he'd be leaving office at the age of 86. Coming up shortly will be Alabama Senator Katie Britt's response. Now, at the age of 42, Britt is basically half of Biden's age. She's able to present a youthful image for the GOP when she talks about families, when she talks about the future. And that's going to be an image that Republicans hope to be able to exploit. Now, part of that, which is very interesting, is that Republicans have been able to build that base with younger voters in parts of the South. We haven't necessarily seen that nationwide. We basically have two dueling coalitions right now politically. Republicans tend to be older, they tend to be white, and they tend not to have college degrees. Democrats tend to be more diverse, they tend to be better educated, and they tend to be younger. However, if the Republican coalition is narrow demographically, it is deep. And if the Democratic coalition is broad, it can still be shallow in ways that policy differences can shatter any sense of unity. And we saw one big example of that tonight on the question of the Israel-Hamas war. We saw some members of Congress suggesting that Biden call for a ceasefire right now in Gaza, something that has not happened despite the administration's efforts due to resistance in the region. Some of those members see Biden as being too supportive of Israel, not willing to hold that U.S. ally accountable for its actions in Gaza. Others, though, within the party look at Hamas's attack on October 7th of last year, and in that brutality, see the necessity of Israel taking aggressive action to defend itself. For Biden, this has been a major split within the Democratic Party, one with possible repercussions in November. As Britt speaks, she'll have the opportunity to show, from their GOP perspective, where they differ with Democrats, to try to counteract what Biden said. But after Biden's long speech, she's got to be able to reach Americans fast and grab their attention in hopes of getting it right. And if anyone knows the pressure that she faces, it's Biden, who again had to deliver the Democratic response in 1983 when Ronald Reagan was president. By the way, in tonight's State of the Union, Biden specifically cited Reagan for standing up to what was then the Soviet Union, saying to Mikhail Gorbachev, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Mr. Gorbachev!
Referring to the infamous Berlin Wall,
which
did come down with the collapse of the Soviet Union.
We're taking it to the next level. Look at all these people. Look at them. They're smiling.
We're expecting the Republican response.
They're smiling.
Again, this
and
is
they're like, look at us go. We're doing it.
Here's where we stand.
We're doing whatever we want.
We believe.
Good evening, America. My name is Katie Britt, and I have the honor of serving the people of the great state of Alabama in the United States Senate. However, that's not the job that matters most. I am a proud wife and mom of 2 school-aged kids. My daughter Bennett and my son Ridgway are why I ran for the Senate. I'm worried about their future and the future of children in every corner of our nation. And that's why I invited you into our home tonight. Like so many families across America, my husband Wesley and I just watched President Biden's State of the Union address from our living room. And what we saw was the performance of a permanent politician who has actually been in office for longer than I've been alive. One thing was quite clear, though. President Biden just doesn't get it. He's out of touch. Under his administration, families are worse off. Our communities are less safe. and our country is less secure. I just wish he understood what real families are facing around kitchen tables just like this one. You know, this is where our family has tough conversations. It's where we make hard decisions. It's where we share the good, the bad, and the ugly of our days. It's where we laugh together, and it's where we hold each other's hands and pray for God's guidance. And many nights, to be honest, it's where Wesley and I worry. I know we're not alone. And so tonight, the American family needs to have a tough conversation, because the truth is, we're all worried about the future of our nation. The country we know and love seems to be slipping away, and it feels like the next generation will have fewer opportunities and less freedoms than we did. I worry my own children may not even get a shot at living their American dreams. My American dream allowed me, the daughter of two small business owners from rural Enterprise, Alabama, to be elected to the United States Senate at the age of 40. Growing up, sweeping the floor at my dad's hardware store and cleaning the bathroom at my mom's dance studio, I never could have imagined what my story would entail. To think about what the American dream can do across just one generation, in just one lifetime, it's truly breathtaking. But right now, the American dream has turned into a nightmare for so many families. The true, unvarnished state of our union begins and ends with this. Our families are hurting. Our country can do better. And you don't have to look any further than the crisis at our southern border to see it. President Biden inherited the most secure border of all time. But minutes after taking office, he suspended all deportations, he halted construction of the border wall, and he announced a plan to give amnesty to millions. We know that President Biden didn't just create this border crisis. He invited it with 94 executive actions in his first 100 days. When I took office, I took a different approach. I traveled to the Del Rio sector of Texas. That's where I spoke to a woman who shared her story with me. She had been sex trafficked by the cartels starting at the age of 12. She told me not just that she was raped every day, but how many times a day she was raped. The cartels put her on a mattress in a shoebox of a room, and they sent men through that door over and over again for hours and hours on end. We wouldn't be okay with this happening in a third world country. This is the United States of America, and it is past time, in my opinion, that we start acting like it. President Biden's border policies are a disgrace. This crisis is despicable. And the truth is, it is almost entirely preventable. From fentanyl poisonings to horrific murders, there are empty chairs tonight at kitchen tables just like this one because of President Biden's senseless border policies. Just think about Laken Riley. In my neighboring state of Georgia, this beautiful 22-year-old nursing student went out on a jog one morning, but she never got the opportunity to return home. She was brutally murdered by one of the millions of illegal border crossers President Biden chose to release into our homeland. Y'all, as a mom, I can't quit thinking about this. I mean, this could have been my daughter. This could have been yours. And tonight, President Biden finally said her name. But he refused to take responsibility for his own actions. Mr. President, enough is enough. Innocent Americans are dying, and you only have yourself to blame. Fulfill your oath of office. Reverse your policies. End this crisis and stop the suffering. Sadly, we know that President Biden's failures don't stop there. His reckless spending dug our economy into a hole and sent the cost of living through the roof. We have the worst inflation in 40 years and the highest credit card debt in our nation's history. Let that sink in. Hardworking families are struggling to make ends meet today. And with soaring mortgage rates and sky-high childcare costs, they're also struggling to how to plan for tomorrow. The American people are scraping by, while President Biden proudly proclaims that Bidenomics is working. Goodness, y'all, bless his heart, we know better. I'll never forget stopping at a gas station in Chilton County one evening. The gentleman working the counter told me that after retiring, he had to pick up a job in his 70s so that he didn't have to choose between going hungry or going without his medication. He said, I did everything right. I did everything I was told to do. I worked hard, I saved, I was responsible. He's not alone. I hear similar concerns from fellow parents, whether I am walking with my friends or whether I'm at my kids' games. But let's be honest, it's been a minute since Joe Biden pumped gas, ran a carpool, or even pushed a grocery cart. Meanwhile, the rest of us see our dollar and we know it doesn't go as far. We see it every day. And despite what he tells you, our communities are not safer. For years, the left has coddled criminals and defunded the police, all while letting repeat offenders walk free. The result is tragic, but foreseeable. From our small towns to America's most iconic city streets, life is getting more and more dangerous. And unfortunately, President Biden's weakness isn't just hurting families here at home. He is making us a punchline on the world stage. Look, where I'm from, your word is your bond. But for 3 years, the president has demonstrated that America's word doesn't mean what it used to. From abandoning our allies in his disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan to desperately pushing another dangerous deal with Iran. President Biden has failed. We've become a nation in retreat, and the enemies of freedom, they see an opportunity. Putin's brutal aggression in Europe has put our allies on the brink. Iran's terrorist proxies have slaughtered Israeli, Jews, and American citizens. They've targeted commercial shipping, and they've attacked our troops nearly 200 times since October, killing 3 US soldiers and 2 Navy SEALs. Meanwhile, the Chinese Communist Party is undercutting America's workers. China is buying up our farmland, spying on our military installations, and spreading propaganda through the likes of TikTok. You see, the CCP knows that if it conquers the minds of our next generation, it conquers America. And what does President Biden do? Well, he bans TikTok for government employees, but creates an account for his own campaign. Y'all, you can't make this stuff up. Look, we all recall when presidents faced national security threats with strength and resolve. That seems like ancient history. Right now, our commander-in-chief is not in command. The free world deserves better than a dithering and diminished leader. America deserves leaders who recognize that secure borders, stable prices, safe streets, and a strong defense are actually the cornerstones of a great nation. Just ask yourself, are you better off now than you were 3 years ago? There's no doubt we're at a crossroads, and it doesn't have to be this way. We all feel it. But here's the good news. We, the people, are still in the driver's seat. We get to decide whether our future will grow brighter or whether we'll settle for an America in decline. Well, I know which choice our children deserve, and I know the choice the Republican Party is fighting for. We are the party of hard-working parents and families, and we want to give you and your children the opportunities to thrive. And we want families to grow. It's why we strongly support continued nationwide access to in vitro fertilization. We want to help loving moms and dads bring precious life into this world. Wesley and I believe there is no greater blessing in life than our children. And that's why tonight, I want to make a direct appeal to the parents out there, and in particular to my fellow moms, many of whom I know will be up tossing and turning at 2 a.m., wondering how you're going to be in 3 places at once and then somehow still get dinner on the table. First of all, we see you, we hear you, and we stand with you. I know you're frustrated. I know you're probably disgusted by most of what you see going on in Washington, and I'll be really honest with you, you're not wrong for feeling that way. Look, I get it. The task in front of us isn't an easy one, but I can promise you one thing. It is worth it. So I am asking you, for the sake of your kids and your grandkids, get into the arena. Every generation has been called to do hard things. American greatness rests in the fact that we always answer that call. It's who we are. Never forget, we are steeped in the blood of patriots who overthrew the most powerful empire in the world. We walk in the footsteps of pioneers who tamed the wild. We now carry forward the same flame of freedom as the liberators of an oppressed Europe. We continue to draw courage from those who bent the moral arc of the universe. And when we gaze upon the heavens, never forget that our DNA contains the same ingenuity that put man on the moon.
Man on the moon. All right. Hey, y'all. Oh shit! 2 hours and 40 minutes. Oh yeah. What they gotta say?
In their party. At her seat is at the center. It's a flashpoint right now over the argument over reproductive rights with their IVF ruling, but the lawmakers in Alabama, the state lawmakers in Alabama, have enshrined and protected IVF services. But she was chosen specifically for those reasons. And I will point out, she has been helping Republicans message on IVF and reproductive rights in their own way, including the former president. And if you thought that speech was, very strong on its messaging, she was very emphatic, almost emotional at times. She was a former communications director here on the Hill, and for folks at home who may not know what that role is, that's the person who helps senators and House members craft their own messaging, makes relationships with the press. You could tell that she's very well studied in that area, and then she became a chief of staff as well for Senator Richard Shelby of Alabama, her predecessor. So she laid out that she felt Biden had failed on the border. She also talked about her children. She wanted to show that she was a person at home. You saw the backdrop was a kitchen, it appeared to be. And she talked about there is a divide between what President Biden wants for America and what Republicans do. But I think what really struck me is that she tried to be very folksy, very, at home and reach people about their kitchen table issues. We'll see if that type of messaging is effective. But I think, and given the fact that the president is still here in the chamber, it shows he has left. Okay, well, he has recently left, which is actually longer than usual, far longer than usual. It does show that Democrats feel that he had a good night. He feels he had a good night. We'll see if that Republican message works or is repeated. But she was chosen on purpose for those reasons.
I want to go to you, James Hohmann, to talk about what Katie Hirt was trying to say, and then also how she's trying to draw contrasts with Joe Biden. But I do have to point out that some of the things she was talking about, James, are things that Joe Biden wanted too. She was talking about the high prices of prescription drugs. She's talking about the middle class, and she's talking about the border. Republicans did have a deal on the table regarding the border, which we heard the president talk about tonight.
Peace and
are
love
the issues
you.
that she is trying to hit on Republican priorities.
Stay warm.
Well, she's trying to be a Republican forward me some talking points that her team sent around to Republican senators, and they said to say that she came across as America's mom and deeply relatable, and relatability was in the talking points